power for a Power Stone is just not going to do it. And sadly, Loco Pojo calls it in, giving the match the Tempest Dragon an easy 0-2 victory.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that was pretty quick and pretty impressive there by Tempest Dragon King. Okay, let's see what else we got. I think we got some more action here. We've got Jedthehomarid versus Rokoku. Let's go down and check that one out. What's Jedthehomarid on tonight? Looks like Elysian. All right, sending down to the action here. Looks like we got Jedthehomarid down on the bottom, Rokoku down on the top. And it looks like Elysian must have been a. Actually, it looks like an Elysian mirror here.
No, I actually Jet. I believe Jet is on Night Maul, so he's actually
Okay.
on the Maul deck, and then Roku seems to be on the Elysian kind of
More of the tempo.
maybe on Maul as well. Maybe not though. Let me see. Let me check the list. They might be on the exact same thing. That might be kind of funny.
They did get the message here that we're playing Throne, and we don't have to play Expedition cards, right? These are the type of decks you see in Expedition.
Yeah.
But
Nope. Okay. Nope. Yeah. Rokoku is on the tempo version. Pretty much just trying to keep things off the board and getting in their Exodramas. There's no Maw in their deck, but a couple of Sodi Spell Shapers as well as the infamous Daring Phoenix or Daring Griffin. So
Daring Griffin, what a great card. I played Huru in the ECQ this past weekend, and Daring Griffin, I gotta say, what an incredible card that is printed here.
Yep, it does some serious work. We have a bit of a board stall here. Neither opponent really looking like they can get into good attacks here, so it's kind of funny. There's a slight advantage to Rokoku's side just because they managed to land the Trailmaker, or Dust Raider, I'm sorry. That will start giving all their units off the top of their deck Berserk, which, I mean, in these kind of Elysian matchups, one good swing from a big unit off the top, especially, let me check and double check and see if they have Sakalis in the deck. Don't think they do, but let me double check. No Psychalis. They're actually running Lumen Shepherd as their top end. I guess giving them a blocker early, and then obviously the 4/6 body is quite relevant later on.
Absolutely. Now, Jed is chipping away for 2 a turn with this Gloaming Wisp. It has Reckless. Now, Rokoku at 13 life and a good board here, good board stall here, like you said. I don't think they're incredibly worried about it. But it does have a Sodi Spell Shaper on it, actually. So they're drawing a card off of this Gloaming Wisp every time it attacks. So it does have Reckless, but it's also drawing a card. So that's a pretty good asset that Jed has here.
Yeah, especially having another Gloaming Wisp on the board, which means they're going to be able to potentially draw. Oh, no. Okay. Crystallize is going to make short work of that, as well as ruining the tempo here. Would not be surprised if we see a bit of an alpha swing here from Rokoku to try to get ahead. Yep, sure enough, we're seeing it. So they swing in with everything. That's going to be a total of 9 damage coming across the board, taking Jed down to 8. Rokoku at 10, and then they play. Ooh, all right. Look at this, Yorja, the Tailkeeper. So the pop. Oh, that explains all the transformation cards. And yeah, no kidding.
Bringing the hot tech to the Tuesday Night Eternal, day 1 of Yorja. Look at that.
Yep. So long story short, Yorja is gonna, and I have to get used to this name, is every time a unit is transformed, i.e. through Equivocate or Unstable Transformation, she will get a +1/+1, and then eventually, if you hit that mastery, she'll be able to transform a opponent's unit to one of cost 2 less than what it currently is, and then up the transformation, uptick one of your units to something +2. So it has some very swingy plays there. First time we've seen it. So there you go. Cracking it, like you said, day 1, breaking the mold. Let's see if we're going to be able to see it do some work here in this matchup or not.
Well, now what I'm worried about here is, did Jed just leave themselves dead on board here? They have one blocker.
Yep.
I think they're just dead on board.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't even. They may not have even needed the Equivocate here. You could jump block 1 and then attack for 7. I think that was just game either way, unless I'm missing something. Rokoku just going off for the Yorja. For the extra.
Yorja, that's right. Hey, you got to test it, right? You got to test the tech. So,
absolutely. Okay, so that was. Rokoku took that one. We're going to head back to the booth here. How's it going, everyone? Welcome again, everybody. We are still in round 1 here. Let me check real quick to see what game that was. But that was pretty exciting. We got to see some 2 different takes on Elysian there, but a pretty good game on that one.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the one thing about the Elysian deck is that They are the mirrors, like when they're both kind of not able to kill anything, so they just keep trying to tempo each other out. Eventually, it makes for very interesting board stalls because once again, neither deck is designed to take things off the board permanently. It's just a tempo play.
Yeah. Okay, that was not game three, or that was not the last game of the match. So we're going to head back down again. We see Rokoku's going to start off on the play with a Borderlands Lookout, and Jedthehomarid's going to match the Borderlands Lookout. Pretty nice hand here for Jed. You got double Permafrost, you got two emblems, a Sodi Spell Shaper, and you got a Nocturnal Creeper. But a good start for Rokoku as well, with the 1-drop, 2-drop combo into Dusk Raider. Both players have pretty quick starts here.
Yep, and would not be surprised to see the mirror play here from Jed, dropping their own Dusk Raider, just kind of capitalizing on most of these decks want to just build up the board, get decent advantage. So by the time turn 4 turns around, they're going to be able to play that Sodi Spell Shaper, bouncing one of the defenders and then getting in there, hopefully replacing it by drawing a card. So interesting to see how Jed navigates this here. And they decided to go with a Nocturnal Creeper, I guess threatening to trade off with the 2 units, which is respectable. I could see that once again. Third power for Rokoku means they're going to have to take their turn off should they want to equivocate here to get into damage. And they're still 1 turn off of their own Sodi Spell Shaper. But showing no fear, Rokoku dives into the red zone with both units, including the Dusk Raider. So extremely interesting play here. I wonder if this is going to be an unstable form. Nope. Rokoku perfectly okay making that trade. Yeah. And their follow play is, there we go, a Berserked Outlander. But Jed off the top drawing a Teacher of Humility, which is another good one in the matchup, considering that both these decks are triggering repeated Nightfall triggers.
Yeah, pretty great draw for both players here. Great Teacher of Humility there. That's going to be a nice one. Of course, it's still early in the game. That was still only the 3rd power, so not able to deploy both 2-drops, but a nice combo of the 1-drop removal spell along with their powerful 2-drop.
Ooh, so we do not see a Sodi Spell Shaper from Rokoku. That would have been an easy answer to the Teacher of Humility. Instead, they're going to the market, which I'm assuming is where they pulled that Permafrost Fund to stop the Teacher and get him for additional 2.
Yeah, so pretty effective. Both players using all their power each turn, which is really important in these tempo decks, and pretty effectively how they were built there. So being able to go to the market and having the 4th power to be able to deploy that Permafrost that turn. Not quite the Sodi Spell Shaper to be able to draw the card as well, but still a pretty efficient answer to the Teacher of Humility here.
Yep, let's see if we see a Decimate from Jed here on that. Oh, actually, never mind. They can't. They don't have the.
Yeah, they don't actually have the influence yet for that. They can next turn with the Emblem of Grodov, the Time Emblem, but they don't have quite the influence yet.
Yep. So they have the option of using Sodi Spell Shaper here, but not to much avail. And sure enough, they decide not to and swing in for 2, no blocks, and from Rokoku. And yep, once again, Jed decides to go ahead and maximize deploying both the Trailblaze Dusk Raider now, as well as the Gloaming Wisp. So a little bit of an awkward stacking on Nightfall, but obviously sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Like you said earlier, they're using all their power, permafrosting the Borderlands Lookout as well here.
Yep. Didn't really exactly need to play the Permafrost there, but really wanted to be efficient with their power, wanted to be able to use the Spell Shaper to full value next turn. So really trying to take advantage of their tempo plays here. Now that Darren Griffin is pretty good. That's going to shut down the Equivocate from the Sodi Spell Shaper if Jed chooses to go that way. But 2 big draws off the top of the deck for Jed. You got a Lunar Magus and a Cicalis here, so even more power coming off the top of the deck for Jed. Might hold off on that Spell Shaper again. They don't really need to hit it yet. They don't want to get it countered by the Darren Griffin. And sure enough, they're going to go with the Cicalis here and hold off on that with Berserk as well.
Now, of note, they could have had also the option of simply playing the Spell Shaper without playing the Equivocate. And then the Darren Griffin does have Reckless. So sometimes it is correct to just let it hit you for 3 and not break it. Obviously, upgrading another unit like we're about to see here. So now we have the Geneva Merchant that got upgraded to a 5/4 Flying Aegis Reckless unit.
Absolutely, but 10 damage off the Cicalis there because it did have Berserk, was able to hit twice with the Overwhelm and the damage prevention, so straight 10 damage to the face there, and Rokoku down to 6, and now their Aegis unit, but now that gave it Reckless, so now their 1 blocker also has Reckless now.
Yep, so I would not be surprised here for Jed to simply see the Merchant go through, take him down to 9, and then potentially have options available to them with the Sodi Spell Shaper in hand to take out whatever blocker Rokoku plays here.
Yeah, Rokoku cannot survive by just playing a blocker. That's not going to be enough. So they're going to need either a way to kill Jed this turn, which isn't probably possible, or use something else to survive here. But just playing one blocker is not going to do it.
Okay, there's two blockers. Sadly, they are still on the gun. They're gonna be taking a minimum. Oh
Oh,
man, but
another
another
Berserk
Psychalis
Cicalis. Oh
off
my
the
goodness.
top. Ugh. And there's
Brutal.
the power of Dusk Raider. Just oh man, turning 5 damage into 10 in the blink of an eye.
Wow, the double Cicalis off the top with the Berserk from the Dust Raider. That's just incredible. I mean, that was basically 20 damage from just those two cards. An incredible turn of events there. And
Hey,
Jedthehomarid
you know
taking
how the
that
saying
one.
goes. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
I thought you were going to go for the other phrase, which is it's not the first one that kills you, it's the follow-up Cicalis that you draw off the top of the deck that kills you.
Fair. Yeah, that's a good one too, right? It's just kind of like the hidden text on Akaria, like
Yeah.
Warcry 5 plus
So
put the next Akaria on top of your deck.
exactly. It's always the second Akari that gets you. And we are lucky enough to get game 3. That was actually game 1 that we turned in the first time. So this is now game 3 between Jed and Rokoku going here.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, this is gonna be interesting. This I feel like it's gonna be very even until one just kind of takes the advantage for a turn and they're gonna snowball because I mean, like I said, these are tempo decks. So they kind of have a very specific line of play they need to. Ooh, Georgia coming down on turn 2. So now we're gonna get to see if this card's like the legit or not. Jed does have a couple options in the form of Permafrost and Equivocate to handle it should he want to, but once again, this being a new card, it's hard to do a good, accurate threat assessment on it. So Jed decides to go with the standard play for Night Maul and play a turn 2 Dusk Raider, triggering Nightfall, and also, once again, like we saw the power, getting Berserk 2 units off the top of their deck.
Now, notably, Jed does have a great start of a hand here. Again, a good curve out here, but they are stuck at 2 power. So the Nightfall, they're really hoping that this Nightfall is going to be able to help them get to that 3rd power, and it does not. And they're going to miss. They're going to be the first one to miss a power drop here. So they still have plays to make, but it's going to be. This is not a matchup where you want to start, where you want to be missing your power drops on turn 3 and turn 4. Those are crucial turns for you to deploy all these threats in your hand.
Very true. We can easily see a bounce spell from Rokoku on their turn. And it is going to be tough, though. And Rokoku might be in a position where they have to decide on whether they want to play a unit that will trigger Nightfall to give Jed a chance to get back in this game or simply just deploy more threats. And that's sure enough what they're going to do, putting 2 Initiate of the Sands into play. Then we see Jed miss their 3rd power drop again. But they did draw Gloaming Wisp, which is something they are. Oh, okay.
They're gonna go. Right. They're gonna go aggressive on the Spell Shaper. They need to hit their power. I mean, that's all this is. They need to get that in there because they need to go in and draw a card, and try to hit this power here.
Wait a minute. Rokoku missed their power as well, though, because they have 4 power in and they played 2 Initiates of the Sands. Oh wow.
That's true. That's true. Both players missing a power there.
So now this is interesting if Rokoku is going to decide on blocking. I guess they have to figure out how valuable they need that 4th power. I mean, it will turn on a Sodi Spell Shaper on their side, but this does give Jed the chance to draw a card.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't. If it were me, I don't think I throw away one of my initiates for that. Of course, I don't want Jed to be able to draw a card here and draw into the power, which they are able to do. But you just can't be throwing away. You can't be chumping away resources just to potentially stop them from drawing a power, which they might be able to draw that the following turn anyway. So it's smart play by Jed there to really push the aggression there and force Rokoku into an unfortunate situation, having to let that through. Of course, drawing their power there. Probably won't come up this game, but if someone equivocates your powerful 2-drop, turning it into a Noble Firemaid isn't the worst thing you could turn it into either.
All right, here we go. Teacher of Humility coming down on turn 4, I believe, for Rokoku. Not exactly where you want to see it, but in this matchup where the units aren't that big, granted, Psychalis is the exception. It might be able to get in there. Of course, Jed has a answer or a blocker in hand for it, actually several, but still we'll see how their turn plays out. They did draw their 4th power here, but it is depleted in Crest. Let's see if they're going to end up looking Teacher Humility there on top. Let's see if they decide to keep digging for power or if they decide to keep the teacher here.
Now that you've hit 4, it becomes a little bit more of a decision. If you were still at 2, I think you automatically throw that to the bottom. Here with 4, It's a tough decision. They do go ahead and put that on the bottom here. Now, they do have a couple answers for the opposing teacher, right? They have another Permafrost. They have an Equivocate. They have units to block it. So there are options for Jed to be able to deal with that teacher as it stands. But definitely Rokoku forcing Jed to have an option here. And Jed's going to line up an attack here, attacking with the 3-4 and the flying 1-1. And Rokoku going to fire off the Equivocate. That's going to get rid of the Spell Shaper.
Yep.
Feral Spitling here.
All right. So Jed gets him for one. They have three power. Let's see what the follow up play here is. They have a couple one and two drops. They could also drop, obviously, the Lunar Magus or as well go to the market. So they do have some options here. I think they do have to respect the Teacher Humidity on the board. So there are a couple options. And sure enough, yep, we see two lines of defense in the form of Nocturnal Creeper, triggering Nightfall, as well as being a deadly defender, and the Permafrost going on the Teacher before sending it back over to Rokoku. Goku plays power, drops Sodi the Metamorph, and then let's see if we see a follow-up play. I think with 6 power, I would probably jam with all three. I don't see Nocturnal Creeper block. Ooh, all right,
Nice,
Unstable Form upgrading.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, going to a 1/4, so not much of an upgrade there, and don't think there's any Decimate in this deck either. But yeah, sure enough, we see all the 1Xs come across the field. I don't see Jed trading the 2-1 Deadly, such a valuable unit for ones. So they're going to take 3 damage, go to 17. Rokoku at 16. Nightfall takes Jed to 16. So we are even at 16 life here. And 2 drops off the top for Jed. So once again, even at 4 power, they're able to do some serious spell singing here.
They are, although it does hurt again to have more of those. I mean, those are 2 very powerful units, and they're good to draw in this situation. But Jed really didn't need more 2 and 3 power plays. They did have that. Now it's going to be good because those are 2 power plays to line up their 4, but they're really not in a position to be able to deploy their hand. I kind of like Rokoku's position to be able to play multiple spells per turn. And while I don't have any Decimate spells, I don't believe, they probably do have the emblems, and that will help them a little bit. Now, at 7 power, they might not need they might be okay tossing away the maximum power here, but in a good position here. Oh, and this is nice, playing the Daring Griffin out before combat. He's going to force Jed, who is holding up that Equivocate, is going to be able to counter that Equivocate. Now Jed is going to stuck with that 2 power in their hands. To basically, if they want to use their power for this turn, going to have to basically fire off an Equivocate just to pop the Daring Griffin, which they don't really want to do, but they might have to.
Yeah, which is extremely frustrating because remember, there is that Unstable Form is still in hand. So should the weapon or should the Daring Griffin get popped and then the weapon go on to another unit, that would trigger the muster off of Sodi and replenish power.
All right, and then
but yeah, like you said, it's interesting because you feel like Equivocate should have gone to the Sodi Metamorph to stop Rokoku from drawing an additional card, but they decided to wait, I guess, to see what the follow-up play was, and like you said, we're punished because Daring Griffin. That card just forced you. Oh, and Jed still coming up dry on power here. I mean, they have some plays, but yeah, it's still so frustrating because, like you said, they're choked on power and they're still only to make X amount of plays per turn versus Rokoku is just able to deploy threat after threat after threat.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Jed has so much to do, but is so hampered by what they're able to do every turn, and then got really punished last turn for holding up the power and not playing out an additional 2-drop, holding up that Equivocate, and then not even being able to use that power there. Really punished for that, and not drawing the other power is just going to be a glut of cards in hand. Now, with that said, Rokoku has had the advantage here, has played off better, but they are going to need to finish the game because they can't let this game go on forever and let Jed start drawing into this power, because once Jed's able to start hitting the 5th power, the 6th power, the 7th power, they have so much more resources now in their hand to be able to deploy those. So Rokoku does want to get this game over. Now they do have the Daring Griffin to help with that, and Jed down to 12. But again, Jed just basically going to just being able to play out, a couple units, a 3-drop and a 1-drop here, which is still good, still effective on this board, but not what they want to do.
One interesting thing to consider that I'm not sure if Jed felt like they were in the position or not, but they do have a Cobalt Waystone in the market. So even though it would not trigger the Aegis ability off of it, it would have given them a power. So they would have been able to play Genev Merchant, go into the market, grab that Waystone, they give them a 5th power, and they would have been able to play one of their other 2-drops. So they did have that option a couple turns. They've just chosen to continue to be aggressive and deploy their threats on the board. All right. Seeing that they're going to win the slow or the long game, they deploy a second Sodi and then swing in the air simply for 3 now. So we'll see if Jed decides to chump block or they take the 3 damage going down to 9. Believe it or not, between the multiple Nightfall triggers and then the slight aggression from Jed, the life totals aren't that far despite the board presence being extremely different.
And an extremely aggressive attack there with the Sodi. I guess with the backup Sodi, Rokoku was just thinking I'd rather trade off a unit here to shore up my better attacks, and I have the backup Sodi to be able to draw more cards, so I don't need it. But trading off that Sodi for Jed's 3/3, and Jed another 2 cards off the top, and another miss on power, just really hampering them. I mean, that's been the story of this game. Not to take anything away from Rokoku, very well played so far and had a great opening hand, but Jed just not being able to really even effectively play the game at this point. But putting up a really strong fight here, doing what they can. Spell Shaper going to draw another card and another miss.
Okay, Gloaming Wisp off the top. That is going to help a little bit. It does offer a chump blocker for the... yep.
Is a chump blocker. Yep.
So let's see, and then another chump blocker on the ground, and then of course, Rokoku hesitant to deploy the 4/6s. So luckily, sadly, the board isn't that impressive on Rokoku's side as far as the aggression goes. Oh man, but yeah, unstable form, doing some work now and turning that what was that? The 1/4 into a
2/1 flying exalted. That is brutal. Oh my goodness. Wow.
All right. Yep. And then the 4/6 Lumen unstable formed into Xerox the Collector, 6/6 flying endurance. So I feel like time is running out for Jed. They need to do something, and they need to do something now. But I gotta say, I don't see a spell off the top saving them with that Daring Griffin still in play.
Yeah, the spell's not even going to do anything with the Daring Griffin play. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that Jed can draw. Honestly, if they could stack their deck,
they don't have Trailblazer or Dusk Raider in play to give him a Psychalis off the top with Berserk, and it's man.
Yeah,
trying to think what they could do. Is there a crystal? Nope, because that's a spell, so that wouldn't even work. Stunning all of Rokoku's
I don't think there's anything Jed can draw here. Even a flying chump blocker is not gonna survive this one. And the Exalted goes off there. It gives another one of the units flying. And now Rokoku has a 6-power flyer and a pair of 3-power flyers and protection against any spell. And there's just not anything Jed's going to be able to do here, unfortunately.
Oh, and then the deck just taunting him gives him 2 power off the top. I mean...
2 power off the top.
I just don't see it. Like, they could equivocate mid-combat to kill the Griffin, but, I mean, they would just put the weapon on whatever else was attacking. They don't have any other flyers, and there's 3 flyers on Rokoku's side. I guess they could break it pre-combat. Yeah, I just don't see a line where they could do this. Let's see. I mean, I guess they could drop the merchant to